Yeah, your voice, your vote. Was that
Yep.
it? Okay. How did that go?
It went great.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
I got a question for you though.
Uh-huh.
So this is what kind of bothers me a little bit about the media, especially with people of color, is
Right.
that they always sort of like gravitate to like our story. And our
Right.
story is usually something of like heartache, right? Like everybody knows what happened to your cousin,
Right.
everybody knows of your background,
Right.
but it's like that's what people tend to highlight. Like,
Right.
how does that make you feel that that's how they identify us? Like, well, we've done so much more
Right.
than just our
Right.
past and what other tragedies are.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
Yeah, it gets old, right? Because it doesn't matter how amazing, strong black and brown people is, intelligent, like we're beating the odds at every turn. We're
Mhm.
inventors, we're doctors, we're lawyers, like we do all these amazing things. And it's like, but we want to talk about the thing. And that thing is always connected to white people somehow. Like it's our whole narrative. And so what I'm trying to do is challenge this thing, like whether it's policing, whether it's systematic oppression. It's like we can't never move on to this stage where we're talking about the excellence of black and brown folks. And so one of the reasons I got involved in this because I want to get back to the narrative of our excellence.
So when you think about that, so what's your narrative? Like,
Yeah,
put away aside what the
right,
media says about you, but what's
right.
your narrative?
Yeah, I'm a father. I'm a husband, right? I have an amazing wife, 8 kids. We own a small business that's growing every day. I chose, instead of to focus on like all the things where I could lose, I chose to get up under a black man that owns a construction company that mentored me, that taught me business, that put the same efforts and energies into me that a black man put into him, right? And
Mhm.
so that narrative is of a winner. Like they try to stay at the
Mhm.
prison thing. I'm like, that's not really who I am. Like my wife still likes me after all these years. That's work, right? My children respect me. That's work, right? My
Mhm.
business is feeding 15 people of color. That's work. That is the win. These are the things that qualify me to be at those tables discussing and creating policy that actually impact our communities.
Yeah, but that's not what they always say when they introduce us. And
Yeah,
also too, it's like especially for like newspapers right now, they're all about selling papers, and so it's whatever the highlight, the headline says, and it's typically not always like 100% accurate.
right, right,
And so I see that and it's just like, man, there has to be another story to be able to tell to actually still be able to get people to watch and, buy, the subscriptions and everything like that. Like we need newspapers to be profitable, but also too, like, don't do it off of our backs or our tragedies or, even if we're successful, it's like, well, that's not newsworthy. You know,
right. No,
you got to
it's
have some sort of
totally
tragedy to tie it together. And I don't believe in that.
it
It's
get
just
old.
really ridiculous.
It get old for sure, and it actually, if we're not careful, it disqualifies us. Right?
Mhm.
It really does. Because they then go, "Oh, I don't know if that's the end of the story, right? Like, I have a white dude that runs in my district, Noah Ernest. He doesn't have to have any conversations about his past. In fact, nobody. And I like him as a candidate, real rational, strong thinking type of dude. But he never has to have those discussions. In fact, it's assumed that that's not a problem, right? When I first
Mhm.
came out, the first paper was Terrance Hayes, activist. I've never identified as an activist. I'm active in our community doing the work. I'm not an activist. Activists run their mouth and scream and yell. People that's actually in the community doing the work just is about the lives of the people around them.
So true, man. I hear exactly what you're saying, but it's like, how do we change this? How do we get people to recognize all the successes that we have done? And just because we've been successful doesn't necessarily make us an activist either. I
Right.
think people want change in so many different ways, and we all go about it in different ways. But I think I'll be honest, like, so that's been hard for me to figure out. How do you change the narrative? And I've struggled with it. Diana, what do you feel about all this?
I think what you did the other day at that gala that Progressive Latino Gala, and what I just witnessed at the NAACP Gala. These are the excellence of who we are as a people that we have to force to be on display. We can't subjugate ourselves anymore to the false narratives about who we are, right? Like you think about how people have been, black and brown folks built political careers. They've always been kind of like puppeted by like middle-aged white women who forced us into narratives that really don't represent our communities. And anytime we stand against them, they go, "Well, that's not really what we believe." And it's like, I don't care anymore. If I can be quite honest with y'all, because at the end of this, I always tell people like, until grandma and them tell me that I'm doing the wrong thing, until the people that sacrificed for the communities when the feet was on our backs and our necks, then you can't say I'm selling my community out, for being honest. You can't say I'm cooning because I'm demanding safe streets for black and brown people, because I'm both saying that we need to stop killing each other and we need pathways to restorative justice on the back end of accountability. Because every other community gets to live in peace based on that relationship of,
Yep.
of public safety.
Mm-hmm.
But our communities, like we're expected to always be in the negative spaces, and people always say, "Well, why?" Because I want that narrative back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there was a period of time when I grew up where black and brown shows were positive. It was families. Even though we were already comedic, we all like to laugh and joke, but it was people that represented healthy families, working hard, doctors, lawyers, construction workers, like we were everything. And then all of a sudden, it's just a narrative of criminality. And it got to end at some point.
Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
just ridiculous. I saw a big change of that, like when Trump was running back in
Mm-hmm,
2015.
mm-hmm,
He, especially for like the Latino community, the Hispanic
mm-hmm.
community here in this country, that's all he would talk about. Remember that ban? That ban, I think, is still coming here because
Right,
he talked about that ban and it's
right,
coming and there's a deadline and it's
right,
it's basically election day of
right,
all these people that are going to come here and terrorize the country and
right,
everything. And
right.
it's just propaganda. Again,
Yeah,
it's to sell people on this idea that we're somehow these terrible people. Like we
right,
all came here for the same reasons
right.
that
Fact.
people have been coming for hundreds of years, wanting a better life, wanting that home and that white picket fence. Everybody wants the American dream. Not all of us are criminals. I'm not
Right.
saying there's not bad apples out there, but come
Yeah,
on, man. Like
there's
that's
some bad
not
apples.
that's not everybody.
There's some bad
Mm-hmm.
apples here too. See, so what you do with narratives is you rile up fear, right? So if I can convince you that every Hispanic person that comes from Mexico or Guatemala or any of these spaces, we just go, they're getting kicked out. Those are the criminals that they kick out of their countries and come here, and then white people get very uncomfortable. And it's us, we better choose a leader that ain't gonna let them criminals over here. And it's the same plan of narratives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because as long as you can convince folks that the brown folks that come over here with hope actually are coming over here to just be criminals, then we will defend our borders, right? Instead of
Mm-hmm.
talking about the amazing, I go to a Hispanic barber, right? I think they call my brother's barber off in Gresham by Safeway. Keep me clean. I stay right? I was talking to the guy, Edgar, and he said he's showing me the papers. He got to go. And I'm thinking in my mind, you got to go and defend that the fact that you should be here. But every day, this young kid, he probably about 2022, is working his tail off. He's working 10, 12-hour days, cutting hair, grinding, talking about a trade. Cutting hair is a trade. Listen, when I first sat in this seat, the little dude barely spoke English and told me, "I got you." Like everybody can't cut black hair, right? But he
Mm-hmm.
did that. And I've been going to him ever since. But I look at him and I go, why do we have to argue about him staying here when all he doing is grinding, working his tail off, loving on community members, even folks like myself that's not directly in the community that he knows, right? He's learning a second language as he goes. Like who can like that's
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy what it takes to come here in a country that we don't even want to discuss us learning the language to meet you in the middle. It's you better learn English. So I look at that young guy and I go, now he's actually the true narrative of what
Mm-hmm.
happens, right? When you seek an asylum, when you're a refugee, right? He from Cuba. He's a true example of what folks are coming here for. right?
Mm-hmm.
And the narrative is a lie. And I oppose all that, to be honest with y'all. Like, all that is nonsense.
Yeah, and part of the reason why I think it's so hard to get that narrative to change is there has to be an admittance that there's a problem with the narrative, with the current idea of Black and Brown people. And, if we were to turn it around and say, okay, you have a problem with immigrants,
Right.
how do you think Indigenous populations felt
Mm.
when?
Hey, ain't that
Mhm.
interesting?
Yep.
Like, we're really an interesting country in that we sit on land that we walk down, and we literally are having conversations on people who's trying to come into this same land and have success. This
Mhm.
is amazing to me. The things we buy into. And listen, let me tell you something. It is not just extreme conservative and Republicans. If you look around us, this stuff don't win, right? If it's not everybody buying into it quietly. We have
Mhm.
a problem with everybody. People are either trying to get rid of Black and brown folks or they trying to save us. And we actually don't need either.
Mhm. Yeah, the gosh, I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, either one of you, that it was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. who said, an injustice to anywhere is a threat to justice
Everywhere.
everywhere.
Facts.
Hmm.
Facts. We
Well,
don't need
there's the thing, I think people think that we need some sort of saving, or like that our problems are different from their problems. Our problems are everybody's problems. It's just
Hmm.
intensified because of our community and the struggles that we go through. But it's
right.
the same problems.
It's that
Hmm.
same stuff.
Yeah.
Listen, what they've done really well is they've, and I said this, and I lean on this in my campaign, is they've decided, one, they decided that they gonna press us, and then they decided they gonna save us. Like, we are literally living in a world where the same people who acknowledge that their forefathers put their foot on our back determines that it's their responsibility to somehow save us, instead of just dealing with systems, not individuals, but
Hmm.
systems that have been put there to harm or prohibit us. We don't need to be saved. That's why I continue to say the Black and brown communities have it made. We have elders, we have leaders, we have successful folks. Like, stop focusing on our struggles and start putting attention to our triumphs. We need
Well,
somebody to pay attention to that.
that's that's interesting you say that, because I think that even for our own communities, though, we have to work on that narrative. I
Hmm.
think for a lot of our communities, like I go to galas like all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always talking about the struggles of our communities and please donate to us. And
Right.
so we're not highlighting people either. We tend to actually kind of bring somebody down when we see somebody take advantage, or get not take advantage, but being successful. And I always
Right.
tell people, like, just because it's how do I say this? Like, just because someone is becoming successful, it's not taking away opportunity. It's actually opening the door for more
Hmm.
opportunity if you look at it that way. But we continue to struggle. But I think that's where people of color here, it's like we're being told, and it's whether it's Democrats or Republicans, they're constantly pulling us in different directions. And I think for a lot of people, a lot of minority communities, you see them more coming towards the middle. They're like, hey, I don't have a party. Uh, yes, I'm liberal. Yes, I'm conservative on some things. You put me in the middle, and that's where I kind of belong. But I think that's where both parties are getting it wrong right now,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
for sure.
it really needs to stop, because I don't know who keeps making up these terms.
You sound like me.
It's true though, man. Like, who made the rule that now when I have to identify myself, it's as a
Right.
person of color? Like,
Right.
can I just say I'm Latino? Is that okay?
It's interesting because I say to people all the time, like, Black and brown people never signed off on BIPOC.
Yes.
We never signed off on that. We've never got in the room and been told, hey, we're gonna make this really grouped in word, and we're gonna take anybody with a little bit of pigmentation and we're gonna drop you in there. And you guys, what do you think? And we always like, yes, we never did that, right? That is another function of controlling our narratives. And that way, I actually don't have to deal with the individual concerns that each community have, right? We all want
Mhm.
to feed our families. We all want peace and joy, right? But how the things that stop us from having that can look a lot different. The Black community is not struggling with a narrative of immigration, right? We're not, you guys are not struggling with an everyday narrative of American criminality, right? Even though you have some of that
Mhm.
on you too, unfortunately, it's not the narrative that sit on you everywhere. It's so if we're going to get to a place of peace and happiness, they got to come talk to me about this false narrative, and they have to come talk to my brown brothers and sisters about their false narratives. But they don't want to, because guess what, y'all? A lot of people are doing really well on
Mhm.
narratives, right? And that's why when you talk about us being somewhere in the middle, my message is not resonating, especially with normal everyday white folks. They're saying, "Thank you for being honest, Terrence. We appreciate your honesty." And this is why I'm problematic for very progressive communities, is because they've determined what my voice is supposed to be. And when it doesn't align with them, when I don't say I'm anti-police, they say I hate community. No, I'll pay taxes. I want the same service that everybody gets in their communities to make them safer. And I
Mhm.
expect police to be kind, patient, but I expect them to do their job. And if they don't, I'm going to be the first one to talk about holding them accountable. But when they're doing their job, I'm going to also be the first one that say, I'm tired of young black men killing young black men. You're
Mhm.
not even supposed to say that anymore. But I show up to the murder scenes, y'all. When
Mhm.
we're dying, I'm the one going into McLaren and JDH and talking to black and brown kids about causing harm in their own communities. These activists aren't showing up in those spaces because they are afraid of our babies. But they build $1 million non for profits on the back of our kids.
Mhm. Kind of going back with to the term BIPOC. It's such an umbrella term that it allows people to just say, as a whole, this is the experience. When no, like you need to honor my identity, my experience, and how different my needs are, and how different all of our needs are. Like, don't just create an alphabet soup and use it. Like, understand it. Don't. It's so easy to use these words. It's so easy to use those buzzwords. But
Right,
unless you truly understand it and are going to put in that work,
right,
not just say I'm going to speak up on behalf of these people and not
right.
actually go in and talk to them, you know, it it's a big cop out.
Yeah, and we need
And
to stop letting them have our
mhm,
voice. And I don't mean to interrupt you, but I need to say this.
yeah.
We need to stop allowing them to go speak for us. We do not need our white counterparts. I love the sincerity, but we don't need that. What we need you to do is to leverage your assets so that our voices can be present. But we actually do not need people to speak for us, y'all. That, like, you talk about what do we do to change the narrative? We demand our voice back. And anybody who wants to take the voice of black and brown people that are not from our communities, we must demand that they forfeit that power that they're building up every day in the name of our struggles, right? And this is what I'm saying to everybody I'm coming in contact with. I'm saying, we actually don't need you to speak for us. We just need you not to be in our way anymore. And if you can do that, then you become a champion for our
Mhm,
causes, because you're just supporting our champions. And we have champions, y'all.
mhm,
We're fine. If you love us and care about us, listen to us,
mhm,
apply what we're telling you, and get out of the way. And this is where I'm finding my most support at in the white community, is folks that want to heed the voice of black and brown people, but don't want to be our champions in these
Mhm.
spaces. They want to
Yeah.
champion us in these spaces.
Well, I think people need to show up, not just like me, but everybody. Like
Everybody.
they need to show up. Like when we're actually going out there and doing something, then they should back us up. And what does
Yep.
that look like? Well, that
Yep.
looks like just like you're running a race right now. They should
Yep.
be donating. They should be, putting on, their campaign rallies.
Yep.
They should be
canvassing.
participating,
Canvassing. Yep.
canvassing, right? And then at the end of the day, and in November, they need to vote,
Yeah.
and that's where
Mhm,
it really counts.
Yep.
But
I agree.
you don't always see that. You don't always see, like, they say these great words and there's like intentionality behind it, but then they don't back it up with their money. And
No,
that's what is a missing piece.
no, I'll give you an example of what I'm struggling with. I got East County Rising's endorsement. And literally they're doing a district one candidate forum, and I didn't get an invite. Now think about what that means. They have built their brand on so-called equity for black and brown folks. They built their brand on formerly incarcerated people, second chances, equity, all these fancy terms. That literally is my story. And when they had a candidate forum, they did not invite me. Right? This is what I'm talking about, you guys, and this is why I agree with you, George. Like, we have to go. If you're really gonna stand with us, stand with us. But don't tell us what our voices look like, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
why we need the black community, the Hispanic community. We need to take our voices back. We need to oppose any narrative that you get to speak for us, right?
Mhm.
And we need to say thank you when you do rock with us and champion our voices. Let's go vote, let's go canvas, let's donate, let's do all those
Yeah.
amazing things, because it is actually better for our community when our, and I mean this is holistically as Portland go. When black and brown folks bring their own voices to the table, all of Portland does better. All of
Mhm.
us. That's what I love about what I'm trying to tell people. Is like, if you let black folks speak for black folks, everybody does better, because we actually can have the solutions we're looking for.
Yep. Couldn't agree with you more. I
Mhm.
know, I do want to tap into Diana here for a second because, like, she ran my campaign when I ran for governor.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to like the money part,
Mm-hmm.
that's where, we definitely saw an imbalance between, organizations and individuals, how much money they would actually
Right.
give when, they're talking out one side of their mouth saying they hate this, they want change, they believe in it, but yet it doesn't match up with the dollars.
No, they don't. I mean, let's be real. Even ranked choice voting is supposed to be about equity. Yet we still see mostly white men dominating the space. Next up is white women, and then a few of us, right? Like,
Mhm.
there's the equity ain't showing up.
So let's change gears here for a second because I want to talk about something here. So I think that that's so true when we see some candidates, and this is not to pick on any one candidate, but Keith Wilson's doing really well. I like Keith. I think he's a really nice guy. He's very intelligent, but I got to say, for me, there's a level of arrogance there when it comes to saying that I can end unsheltered homelessness within my first 6 months of being in office. And, people are just jumping on there. If I were to say that as a person of color, as a brown person, as a Latino, they would be like, first of all, you're so uneducated and blah, blah, blah. Not knowing that I'm educated
Right,
and served in the highest levels of government,
right,
they would say that I'm crazy.
right.
So why is the story flipped? I mean, honestly, do you think he can end unsheltered homelessness in 6 months?
Nah, I like Keith too, right? I'm a Rene Gonzalez fan. I'm on that hill, right? But I do like Keith. I agree with you. He's a smart guy. But this is the thing. I agree. If me and you came out and said something ridiculous like that, then they would immediately dismiss us, right? You don't know what you're talking about. Go get a little bit more education. The problem is this. The problem is even the reference points that everybody, including Keith, is using to determine some of their policy actually has nothing to do with Portland and our culture and how we're set up. I hear people quote studies all the time about homelessness, but the problem with those quotes is don't take into consideration Measure 110. It doesn't take into consideration 4002 and all these adjustments we keep making when it comes to open air drug use. Like, people keep trying to drop other states and city stuff on us, and those states and city look nothing like us. So Keith, who I believe is very intelligent, very optimistic, I like him a lot. I think he's holding on to something that resonates with the voters at a high level. But it's not really. I don't think he can pull it off because again, none of us is really being honest about the connection between open air drug use and the increase in homelessness, right? We really don't want to talk about that because we keep just dropping words like mental health in there as if we didn't see a rise in the mental health crisis proportionate to open air drug use. None of us is being honest about the fact that these psychoses happen as a byproduct of extreme drug use. That's just me, though. They say I'm pushing boundaries, y'all, but
No,
whatever.
but it's true. Like no one in the country has ever had to deal um, with a bill like Measure 110, where everybody was allowed to be able to do drugs. And we've had a lot of people die on our
Yeah,
streets.
yeah.
We have people like in severe psychosis that are out there. And
Mhm.
the thing is that so I do want to give him credit for this one thing is, and not just one thing, but when it comes to shelter, people need shelter. That's a fact. We know that. We
Mhm.
know if we bring back nighttime shelter, things will definitely change.
Yeah, he's
Mhm.
right.
But the problem with this is that we have about 3,000 people that have severe mental high acuity need, and a shelter is not going to solve that. We're talking about civil commitment. Like these
Right.
people need to be in like a residential
Yeah,
facility,
for
and
sure.
right now Oregon is upside down when it comes to their mental health and
Right.
residential facilities, and that costs a ton of money. When we actually asked him that question about it, he sidestepped it. And as I've been talking to people, and especially like developers, like we really like his plan because of course he's going to develop more properties.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm like, but you're not developing the right thing. And so that
Mhm.
money is going to dry out from the
Right.
government. And then you're going to be stuck with what?
Right.
Still having the same problem with 3,000 people that have high acuity needs that are still out on the streets.
Yeah.
And what are we going to do? We're going to throw them in jail. We know that's not what everybody
It's,
wants to
it's
do.
not going to answer it either. Can I add a thought to that?
Yeah, go ahead, jump in.
Even if you house everybody, the real issue in a way we're impacted by homelessness and why it's a big issue because of the way our homeless community is impacting folks through their behavior. So even if we house 3,000 homeless people, if we don't deal with the mental health and the drug addiction, the behavior continues. So
Mhm.
that's what another thing I'm telling everybody, like, hey, you guys, I have a father-in-law who's housed, but he's still an addict. The housing didn't deal with the addiction or the behavior outside of the home. He
Mhm.
still is negatively impacting community. So even if we housed everybody, I assure you guys, where if we housed everybody tomorrow, the behavior does not cease to happen, and people will continue to complain. And then, like you just said, all they're going to want to do is throw people in jail. That's all they want to do. It's like just fill the prisons up again. Let's open up the beds, and we know that doesn't work. And we'll be right back where we started.
Mhm. And to your point, kind of going back, it's not about the people, it's about the systems. And if we were to actually talk to the people that are most impacted and learn about how our systems are failing them at multiple levels, then we could get to the root problem and then we could actually have some changes that are going to change things and not just continue to mask it.
Right. So you're talking about what we started off with, which is listening to the voice of the people you say you represent. We're
Mhm.
right back there. No matter what the issue is, y'all, we're right back there. Stop stealing people's voices and speaking for them and let people speak. Why are not the biggest voice in addiction formerly addicted people?
Mhm.
Those should be the only people. We should be listening to what they say and applying and creating policy based on what they say, not what we say.
We actually, we tried that, but I think that we saw a lot of not a lot, but some community-based organizations have struggled in this area. They're experts in understanding the problem, but they're not very good and understand how to manage government contracts.
That's true.
So you see
That's
some of them they get into trouble. They don't know how to
right.
manage, the money. The money all of a sudden is gone. We have this whole thing with
Right.
like accountability. And
Right.
so people get really edgy and they don't know what to do, whether to give the money to, community-based organizations, keep it in the government.
Mm-hmm.
What we need to do is we need to like actually have a system that actually helps each other, that it's not such a huge overburden on community-based organizations, but that we're actually helping them so that way they can be successful.
Well,
But
yeah.
that's being able to give them the right amount of money. I mean, when you just give a little bit of money to a community-based
Yeah.
organization, it's like, oh, great, I can hire one extra person,
Right. Right.
and I
Right.
still
Mhm.
don't have enough to actually perform all the services this
Yep.
contract says. And government always says, oh, we're doing it in the name of equity, so we're going to
Right.
split this money up to so
Right.
many different organizations, and it's not meeting what we actually really need. But you know,
And when
And
they do
yeah,
that, they create that environment of
there we go.
competition.
There we go. I'm just about
Mhm.
to say that. We
Mhm.
start fighting each other over a
yeah,
couple dollars. We actually start distancing ourselves from each other. And what the money is supposed to do actually is counterproductive. It
Mhm.
actually don't bring the strengths of our communities together. We start arguing and fighting over small pots of money,
yep.
right? Instead of true investments, right? So,
Mhm.
and I'll add one thing to you. If you didn't grow up with a father who or a mother who's a business person, right? You can't go drop $10 million on a small org and don't get them the front office support or the back office support that they need, and then get mad when you show up and they can't track certain money. They
Mhm.
weren't taught. They wasn't taught. That's why I said in the beginning, I went to a construction, somebody I respect in the construction space, Jeff Moreland of Raymore Construction, and became a student of business before I journeyed back into business. And we need those same things, y'all. We need
Mhm.
to, if you're going to stand up one of our orgs, you need to understand that we've never seen or known how to manage $1 million. So don't take the $1 million opportunity away. Give us a line item of support inside of that contract. That way we don't squander it, we track it properly, and we continue to impact the community.
You know what though? So when we're talking about all this is like talking about dollars and cents here, and what really makes sense for the city of Portland. And one thing that I've talked to like a lot of candidates about has always been about how are you going to uplift this economy? And there's tons of talent that we have here locally, and we have a lot of people that we can recruit to come into this community. And I always look at the entertainment industry as one of those things. And I feel like right now, and for the city of Portland, it's there's not too much to do. You look on the weekend, there's just not that much, do. Like, what are we going to do to attract talent? Like, when are we going to get the next Messi? When are we going to get, when are we going to bring Lillard back or somebody else, here to actually bring some sort of excitement into the community? This weekend, we were trying to figure out what to do with the kids. And it was just like, man, there's like nothing's open, or that's out of business, or things close early at 5 o'clock on a Saturday. It's like, wow, what's going on here?
Well, we have. I'll say my thoughts is twofold. We have a culture problem in this city for the last 4 to 6 years. If we just want to be honest, from a black and brown perspective, the people who represent our voices didn't look like us, and so people that's outside of our city don't see it as a very ethnically sound city. They don't see it's not a place where black and brown folks want to go. And if we're going to talk about black basketball, if young black talent don't want to come to Portland, we're in trouble. And if they don't want to stay here, we're in trouble. Right. So we have a cultural issue where we are not raising the voices. You're talking about music, you're talking about dance. Come on, black and brown folks, when it come to that, y'all. Come on. If we're not bringing black and
We
Hispanic
got we
talent
got
here,
rhythm, man.
Mhm.
come on, man. That's what I'm saying. So if we're, but again, we have to esteem those individuals so that people that look like them can see a place for themselves in this city, right?
Mhm.
And we haven't done that very well. And the minute we do get a black or brown person there, they kind of just sound like middle-aged white women for the most part, right? They're just regurgitating that same information. And black and brown folks in other cities, they're not coming to that narrative. They don't want to be here if that's what Portland is, right? So
Mm-mm.
we can't even draw the highest level of talents in our communities are not interested in being here because they will not. And when we get them, they always leave. How many Hispanic folks y'all know that came to this city, high skill, high intelligence, high talent, and was like, yeah, I'm going home
Mhm. Too many.
because we got a right to our own culture. We have a right to exist in spaces that feel like us, right here, y'all. It feels like us, and Portland don't do well in allowing us to have that. And then let's now wrap that around public safety. We've not even been free to be safe in our communities because the narrative in our communities is that we don't need police. We don't need people to protect our community. We shouldn't want them there. Why do they need to be in black and brown communities? They only cause harm. We could have went the other way and say, how do we draw black and brown people into public safety? How
Mm-hmm.
do we assure a voice in a space there? How do we entice them into these spaces? But there ain't a new not for profit that's gonna show up every day on that narrative.
Well, Diana, so would you get into public safety? You're female, you're Latina. Would you go and be a cop?
Right now, today,
Yeah.
no, there's
No,
not enough of me to create my own like safe space, right,
right,
within the workforce, and no way that I could sincerely voice my experience, the experiences of folks in the community, my concerns,
yeah,
without the response being, "All right, you're free to go.
right.
We're letting you go."
It's a culture issue.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, when I'm at the table with folks from PPB and PPA, I'm talking about the culture issue. I'm talking about why black and brown folks ain't excited and ways to get them excited, which
Mm-hmm.
is we got to be at the table, y'all. We got
Mm-hmm.
to be instructing how interaction is happening around our young people so that they can see police and fire and other forms of public safety as a valuable path to community service. But if they only see through the lens of how we're treated and how we're handled, they're not going to want to get involved. We've been through too much. Our
Mm-hmm.
babies don't want to touch, but I got kids. My sons ain't never in their life been in trouble. Don't come from tough guy stuff. Can't relate to my past. And I'm like, man, y'all should become officers. No, I'm not. They're not going. And they're less worried. They're more worried about how they'll be treated when they become officers than anything. So I'm
Right.
looking at black and brown officers, and I'm saying, hey, y'all gotta come to my house, man. Y'all gotta show my kids that there's a path for them. But they're
Mm-hmm.
even struggling to feel good and feel safe. So the reason I went after that PPA endorsement and why I'm working with PPA and I'm working with PPB is because I'm talking about the need for a narrative shift for black and brown folks if they want to have an increase in our presence in these spaces.
Right. We have to we have to go after that. If we continue to wait and wait and wait for an invitation, we're never going to get it. Like,
Why would
when
we?
we see our own talent and we see the opportunities, that's something that we have to share and push. We have to get our people in and have them see the full picture, right? Like, whatever the history of police is, it doesn't have to stay that way forever. And this is the difference that we can make, and this is how we can change the narrative.
Mm.
And
Ain't it? Can I hit you with one more? Because I
yeah.
love that you said that. We're never supposed to imagine a world where we can trust police, but we're also always supposed to imagine a world where we can trust white people. Now, think about that, though. Think about
Mm-hmm.
the fact that
No,
we are
yep.
expected to move forward in our interaction with other communities as like we all in this together. Let's move forward and be happy. But in policing, it is what middle-aged white, the middle-aged liberal right community that's telling me and you we should never see a path of reconciliation in those spaces.
Mhm.
As if somehow we can't reach back to white folks as a whole and pull out the same behavior. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying if I'm expected to treat my white brother and sister with love, compassion, and respect, and give them the benefit of the doubt that they are not their forefathers, then certainly I can create that same line of communication between police, and that's what I'm working for. But I just tell them all the time, man, that it is interesting when you walk down how black men have been historically treated, set up, murdered, castrated, and jailed behind the lie of white women. But I'm not supposed to judge every white woman, and I don't for sure, but I'm supposed to give them a chance. But with the police, I'm never supposed to look through the narrative of progression and forgiveness. I reject that notion, right?
Yeah,
We
you
can
know,
be in those spaces and move forward.
exactly. The thing is that in our society, we need law enforcement.
Yes.
That's why, with some really left liberal people, they don't like me, and that's okay. And, it's like, well, because you believe in law enforcement, it's like, that makes you like a Republican. I'm like, I'm not a Republican. I'm
It's
still a
crazy.
Democrat. But I also know, just like Measure 110, you can't just, you know, Measure 110, the intentionality was a good one.
Yeah.
But when you let society just run wild with drugs, this is what it produces. And it's going to be the same thing with like law enforcement. You can't, just give up on law enforcement and say we're going to be lawless now. We're just going to let the community police itself. That's not going to work out too well either,
No,
because
but guess what? Wealthy people will hire private security, and
absolutely,
we will bury our babies.
exactly,
And it's
exactly.
proven. Portland is we defunded instead of defined. We defunded. We've been burying our babies ever since, and they're hiring private security in the Pearl District.
But you know what though? Let's talk about that, because here's the thing. Sometimes like things will get used against us because someone that looks like us started that movement
Yeah.
or reinforced that movement. And so that's happened to me in the past where it's like, well, this Hispanic, this Latino believes in this. And so because of that, you're wrong. It's like you jump on the bandwagon. I'm like, no, because it's still
Right.
wrong. It doesn't,
Yeah.
just because another person of color said it doesn't necessarily make it the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And the same thing with policing. Do I believe policing needs to be reformed? 100%. Yes, I do believe that. I know that because I used to be a cop.
Right.
I know that the system is not 100% accurate, and it needs
Right.
to be fixed from how we arrest people to how we prosecute people, how we incarcerate people, and how we treat people after when they've already served their time. All of that needs to be reworked. But to say we're going to ditch the whole system and just let society police itself, that is not the right thing to do. And to my far left counterpart, good luck with that. But I think that we need to start focusing more on common sense, solution.
Yep. There you
Because
go.
I saw this one race. It was actually for a seat in the district, and it was and the debate was on TV. And then in the beginning of the debate, they were debating how much more liberal the other person was from each other, because of course they're running for a district in Monoma County.
Right.
And I'm like, that is ridiculous. You should be telling us how you're going to actually represent us in Congress, and not how much more liberal you are, but how much more common sense you are to the solutions that we need, especially coming from the federal government. But that's what we've got. I mean, that's Portland, that's Multnomah County.
But it's
That
still happening. It's
Yeah,
Mhm.
still happening. People are listen. You look at my district, and three of the main fundraisers don't even really represent the value system of East Portland, but they're very supported by the super left, in my opinion, right? And when you ask them tough questions, they don't have to answer it because they don't have to be rational, they don't have to think, they don't have to look at data. They just say, oh yeah, yeah. So you always ask the question, do we need more police? They don't generally answer yes or no. They go, well, we need to fill in what we have. That really wasn't the question. We know that it's already been approved. But my clear answer is yes, because as long as you call for officers and they don't show up, we have a problem, right? Now, if you want to
Mhm.
talk about accountability, I've been fighting and pushing for that. You want to talk about reform, I've been fighting and pushing for that. You want to talk about the growth, I'm the same person that acknowledges that the same way I was treated as a young man by officers, my sons don't see that same way I did. Is it perfect? No. But we've actually seen some growth, and we can acknowledge it because if we as black and brown folks actually acknowledge change, everybody who's getting the 150,000 a year to scream that nothing is happening will lose their job.
well, this is where I think Republicans don't get a free pass in this conversation, because
Not at all.
they've chosen to ignore these things. And I know, like, for myself and Diana, we've supported Republicans in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and she's has also seen. I want her to comment a little bit on this. Like, what has been your experience as you've been also trying to reach across the aisle and work with some Republicans?
Is this a me question or her?
No, this is a Diana question.
Yeah, you got to ask.
She's like, oh, great. Now you're really pulling me into this.
No, I laugh because going back to buzzwords, right?
Right.
There's buzzwords and that they shy away from. They don't want to be associated with that because of, oh, if you say that, now you're part of this, leftist movement, and are you truly a Republican? And start to question
Right.
who they are, which is ridiculous. There are certain topics, and it's a patterns that we see. For those who, there's some that have found a way around the buzzwords, they'll just describe it differently.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of equitable services, they'll just say, "Oh yeah, how can we improve everything for everyone?" And and some people might need something
Right.
different.
Right.
And but there's also this pattern of, okay, like, hey, I need to bring you in or bring you along this journey for this measure or for this policy that we're considering, and we need to be united in this movement, right and left. And if it becomes too much of a hot topic issue, then it's like, okay, instead of doing that, I'm going to go and do the work myself and now, talk to those people directly. And then I'll come back around and hit you back on whether or not I want to be a part of that. And
Right.
it's like, no, the bigger picture is if we are united, if we understand that this is a everyone problem, then the impact is greater. We can get things going. We can work things out, of what both sides are okay with, terms, words, whatever it may be. But no, it's, they see is like, how is this threatening to me? And how is this going to take away from me? And it's like, that's the trap. That's always been the trap. Like, if you can't see the bigger picture, if you start internalizing it and how it's affecting you and only you, then you're never going to see how if one community continues to struggle, the whole community is going to
Yep.
continue to struggle.
Yep.
Man,
Yeah.
this sounds
Gun violence.
exhausting, doesn't it?
Yeah. Gun violence, drug use, poverty. It ain't Democratic or Republican. It's just people.
It's just people.
It's just people.
Mm-hmm.
Thing is, everything that happens to us, just like COVID-19, shootings that happen on the streets or robberies or death, it doesn't discriminate. It does not
Mm-mm.
discriminate.
Nope.
From white families to Hispanic families to Asian families to Black families, it doesn't discriminate. We see domestic violence happen throughout all of our communities. It's just that it gets responded to in different ways.
Yep.
And all of these things. Here's the thing, though. There's a solution out there. There is a solution, but it's going to require for more people like yourself to be able to get into office to continue running, right? So even, the goal is, in November you're going to get into office, and you and many others are going to be able to make those necessary changes.
Mm-hmm.
But it can't just stop there.
Right.
The next people have to be up and ready, and ready to tackle on these different situations that are going to come across, because that's what we need. We can't have the same people also sitting in these seats, for 20, 30 years.
Right. It's a different look. Right.
Right. It's like, okay, if I'm old and senile now and I can barely make any senses, it's time for me to probably move on, right? But you see that on both sides of the aisle. Like it is both on the left and it's on the right. And if the left says, hey, this is what we're going to go for, then the right says, no way, we can't agree on that. We're going to go this way.
Right.
And I just don't understand that. I don't understand how the majority of the country is more in the center, but yet we only have a two-party system.
Yeah, because we like war. We love political war, right? We love this notion that there has to be an enemy and there has to be a saint, right? Somebody got to be them. This is why we can't negotiate through reasonable situations. Like, we know we have a problem with gun violence. Why are we so on opposite ends of the conversation of how to resolve it?
I know there is something in the middle, right? There is some. We don't have to take everybody's guns away. No. There's some reform that can be done. There's a medium,
right?
But it's one or the other. It's like these extremes. The extremes on both sides is what gets us to be like deadlock, and we never make any progress. Like for us, something that's close and personal to both of us is immigration.
Right. Right.
There is a solution for immigration reform. Right. I cannot believe that the last person that actually had sensible immigration reform was Ronald Reagan. That was a long time ago.
Many
long time ago. How is it that we have not been able to figure it out since now?
Because we like war, and we love war more than we actually love people. This is why we talk about immigration as if those are not lives, as if it
Mhm.
is not hope, right? We continue to use language that's less about people and more about narratives that we're comfortable with. Because this is the truth. You said it. Nah, most people ain't coming over here to commit crimes. Let's acknowledge and honor that. But there is some folks that's coming here to commit crimes. Let's deal with that.
Mhm.
But in politics, it's either or. Everybody's a criminal or everybody's not. And the truth is nowhere near those extremes, man.
That's the way it is, man. That's politics. Are you ready for this though? This is gonna be like your
Yeah,
life
yeah,
every
yeah.
single day. Are you ready for that?
Let me tell you why I'm ready. Because I've been blessed to have an amazing wife and amazing kids. My business is flourishing and impacting lives. I've been working in our communities to be part of reducing gun violence. I've been working in our communities to help CBOs develop and help entrepreneurs develop their businesses. There is real work that has been done that really is my purpose and who I am. This is how I think I continue to move that work forward. So I'm excited, and yeah, I think I'm gonna be fine because I'm not gonna lie and compromise because I actually have community members that validate my work. So if you have a problem with me, it's because I'm saying something with the backing of a body of work that's contrary to your belief about me or other communities like myself. That's the only way they'll have a problem with me. So yeah, I'm ready for this. And yeah, I should make people nervous because they've walked on the back of folks like me narrative to build up nonsense laws and policies at the expense of folks like me. And I'm going to stand for folks like me so that everybody can benefit, not just folks like me, right? When we do right, everybody wins for that. And we need to have more representation, not because it checks a box in numbers, but because it brings an experience to create policy to help folks with like experiences.
Well, I want to be able to see that we can all be able to come together again. The event that you went to, for Progreso Latino, we
Beautiful.
had we had Republicans, we had Democrats, we had elected officials, we had business owners. We brought everybody together, and everybody said, wow, they haven't been to something like that in a long time because you usually go to like these events and it's the same people. It's the same people all the time because these groups or these individuals only support these initiatives, and all of a sudden here we come in with this event and we brought people together. And people were laughing, they were having a good time. It was, I mean,
Mhm.
yes, it was loud, it was noisy, but people were just having a great time, like being engaged and being involved. And so everybody got to see like what this network looks like.
Right. Beautiful.
And it's like this is real people. This
Yes.
is everybody coming together
Right.
to finally say, you know what, we're gonna bring down our guard, and
Yep.
we want to listen to see what uh, what these people have to bring as far as a solution, for these three candidates.
Mhm.
What did you think about the debate? What did you think about the audience?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you something. My biggest concern, and again, I've already stamped Renee as my candidate. What I was looking for from Rubio and from Keith is to make it about how they're gonna move our city forward, and not about Renee. I think they do themselves a disservice by not giving people the true look. Carmen Rubio have done some amazing thing in housing, right? She's accomplished a lot in her time, but I'm looking for to see if she can be that leader we need to get to the next step. And I want to hear about her policy, and that's what I'm looking for out of her. Keith, we know where he stands with homelessness, smart dude, but again, that is not the end all, and it is a traumatic place, and it's not a triumphant place. And so I'm looking for them to step up. I think the questions was real. I liked how y'all approach it. And I want to go back to something you said. It was loud because real people are loud. They're energetic. They're happy. They're joyous, right? And that the debate was just a stamp on the energy that y'all brought into that room. I thought it was real. I'm just looking for candidates to tell me what they gonna do, and to be honest and to be clear about their intentions when they sit in that seat. And I think y'all ask a lot of good questions, but I think we got to stop letting people pivot on us too in our communities. We got to stop letting people dance around tough questions and demand clarity.
My biggest complaint during election season is I don't want to hear, candidates put down other candidates. You have, this much amount of time to get my attention, and I want to hear what you're going to do for everyone. I don't want to, stop wasting time putting other people down.
Yep.
This is your time to share and stand out.
But you know what? Just like anything else, just like with the news, with like newspaper, it's headlines. It's what sells. It's what people like are attracted to.
Yeah.
And like just right before the debate, I'm going to ask you this. I know that you're a Renee fan. I get it.
Right.
I think there's some commonality here, right?
Right.
Both candidates, Renee and Carmen, have had some issues with some parking tickets.
Fact.
Now, I think the situation is kind of ridiculous that we're talking about like parking tickets at this point. Right. But it is a thing, and I think everybody in their life has had parking tickets at some point or another. There's what's considered reasonable and then unreasonable, and then walking away from hitting a parked car. It's like on camera, but it's like, is that a disqualifier?
No.
And also too, like for people like yourself, you've got it passed. Also, I mean, but like, what defines us? What says that I'm going to be successful as a mayor or not? I mean,
right.
What do you think about this whole,
No, I think it's nonsense. And again, I agree with you. Carmen's body of work should have nothing to do with a parking ticket or speeding tickets. I think people get concerned. I'm not one of those people. Okay. There's a lot of things you could do that'll make me go as a leader, but it's not parking tickets, right? I think that when we create imagery of clean, then when something happens, people who want to project us how they want it to often come against us. Listen, the thing about me is that people always say, are you worried about stuff coming out? I said, man, I've been from day one telling people all my business. What are they going to say about me now, right? Like, so no, I don't think that disqualifies Carmen Rubio. I think, again, I'll say what I said about Carmen in the beginning. I think Carmen needs to stand on the body of work she have and the body of work she needs to accomplish. But I honestly think that that people are going to constantly press her not to press tough lanes. And I would love to see her break out of that. I think she's smart. She's amazing. But again, I'm always looking for a leader that's going to do the tough stuff. And that's one of the things with Carmen. I'm like, I need her to do say the tough thing that makes people uncomfortable, what we all know is true. But as far as body of work, look, I did a Willamette Weekly endorsement panel, and I said very clearly, they asked me who I think has a body of work and has done really well, and I said Carmen Rubio, because I can see her body of work. So that's not a disqualifier, but I'm just looking for the next level leadership from her also that I feel like I see in Renee, but it does not take away from Carmen's body of work. She's amazing.
Yeah, I think that's where, I think for us, like, we've had this conversation, right, Diana? Like, we both like Carmen as a person. We both enjoy her, she's a wonderful person.
Thanks.
We know Renee also. He's also a wonderful person. And, I've had the privilege of getting to know Keith also. So I think, right now we have three great candidates to be able to select, right? And it's not creating like a division between either one of them.
No.
Neither one of them is perfect.
No.
Everybody has made mistakes. Everybody has had some great major accomplishments.
Yep.
I know for the future of Portland, I hope and pray that we're not going to go down the same path,
yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. But that's going to be up to the voters. That's going to be up to them to be able to say, this is who I really want to represent me. And then it's up for those elected officials to get to work when they get into office.
And it's up to city council to not, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, listen, me liking somebody don't mean nothing. Whoever is the mayor, I'm going to respect and work. If that's Carmen Rubio, I assure you I'm going to be first one at the door saying, Miss Mayor, where do we go from here? Right? Mm-hmm. I'm not, if it's Keith, Mr. Mayor, where do we go from here? It's for me liking somebody is me liking them. I get to check a box, right? I get to check a box. But I assure everybody, if Carmen Rubio is our next mayor, I'm standing with our next mayor. I don't have to bring my mess to the table. She's going to lead us, and I'm going to expect her to be excellent. Keith, expectation of excellence. Renee, expectation of excellence, right? It doesn't matter to me which one of them is there as far as my ability to work with them and respect that office.
And I want to bring us back a little bit because we've been focusing on Keith,
right,
on Carmen and Renee, right, but there's a list of
Mingus
candidates.
Is there?
Mm-hmm.
Right? What's this? Viva
I feel for Mingus though. I mean, I really do. I feel for Mingus. Mingus is a great guy. I had the opportunity to interview him. He is awesome. Just a wonderful individual. I really like him. I honestly don't know why he hasn't gotten more media attention. Like, he is currently a commissioner and he's gotten like zero attention. People have been asking him to abandon his campaign.
Yeah.
And I just don't get it. Yeah. I mean, what do you think, Dan?
You don't get it?
No,
this happened to us.
Right. You know it. So listen, Mingus was my number 2 pick. I also endorsed Mingus Maps. I need everybody to remember that. Like, I feel like Mingus is sharp. He's a really intelligent guy. I think he I'm gonna be honest with y'all. There are some times I think when Joanne Hardesty was running rampant in the office, and people were looking for Mingus to step up and challenge some of that, especially the Black community. So I think some of the leverage he could have had with supporting the Black community he didn't get, because either he kind of like quietly opposed Joanne and people didn't like that, or he stays silent when he shouldn't. But that is on my ballot, it will go Renee, Mingus, and then Keith, right? That's just my ballot right now, right? But listen, if Rubio show up, I'm telling y'all, like, I just love greatness, and I'm not knocking nobody. But Maps is there too.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of good candidates, and I think, like, when we were trying to figure out the debate, like, as a group, man, it was hard. It was like, okay, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
We can't do a true debate with that many people.
Right.
No one's going to stick around for 3 hours.
Right.
We jam-packed as many questions as we could in 90 minutes with 3 of them. And they were exhausted at the end of it.
Right. Why did y'all choose Keith over Mingus? Can I ask y'all that? Is that
fair?
That's
a great question.
I mean, we're here. I need to know.
So they, when we reached out to the campaigns, we let them know, hey, there is going to be a deadline. By this deadline, you have to have everything certified through the small donor election office. And so even like a week prior, actually what I did was like a month prior, I reached out to small donor to figure out how far are people away. Okay. And then I reached out to the campaigns and said, hey, just to let you know, like the deadline is coming up. And then I did that even up all, to the week prior.
Right.
And even to the week prior, they reassured me that he was going to make it.
Right.
And so if they would have, if Mingus would have made the requirement, then there would have been 4 people on that panel.
For sure.
But unfortunately, he didn't make it. And we tried to work with the small donor election office to figure out, okay,
where is it at?
Where is he at? Like, we were talking the day of, and we were talking the following day, which was the next Monday, to try to figure out, did he make it? And they were like, unfortunately, he just hasn't made it. He's a little bit short.
The stamp didn't happen yet.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's something that a lot of people don't know. So we were trying to figure out, okay, so how do we do this? Because we do want to be inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
And we got, really attacked by some other groups that made our decision more difficult. Mm-hmm. Because it's like, okay, well, if we let this person in, then we have to let this person in, which lets this person in, and we're stuck. And so the more like sort of aggression that we were getting from other camps made our decision very difficult, and where we had to say, okay, you know what, we drew the line a long time ago, and we're just going to stick to it because they were making our lives a little bit difficult. So unfortunately, because of that, that's how it ended up.
Yeah, well, there were over 19 candidates, and to make it fair, we said, okay, who has reach? Who's gotten that reach to at least 750 Portlanders?
Which is huge. I mean, Liv Austin pulled that off, so that was huge for her too. So interesting in thinking and seeing where her campaign go at the next phase. So we got some good stuff happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I got to say, Mingus's campaign, they were gracious.
Right.
They were working with us. We were in constant communication with them, and they were awesome. Colin, from the campaign manager for Mingus, was excellent. And at the end of the day, they were understanding, and they knew the position that we were in. And so that's why we have a lot of support for them, even
Right.
though they didn't make it. But we have continued to extend that conversation even after the debate, to
Right.
have with them
Hmm.
and even bring them on the show again to continue that conversation. And we've actually extended that to all of the candidates also.
Good.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Well, I'm
To be as inclusive as possible, we offered them an separate opportunity. Like, okay, you weren't able to make, you didn't meet the debate stage, but like, let's highlight you during
right.
the pre-show. Let's, do, or you can send in, if you have your own video, we'll put it up on our website. Or
Right.
we can sit down and talk and, do a podcast and put it on the website and drive everyone, and share in our platforms to expose you as much as we can.
No, I get it. I
Yeah.
like maps. We'll see. Map don't count the maps out yet, right?
well, hey, Terrence, thank you so much for being here with us today. We've had just a great time with you. This was really informative. It was also fun. We got to laugh and cry a little bit, but it's been great. So from me to you, thank you. I'll give it over to Diana to close us out.
So if you enjoy hearing more of these shows, please feel free to like and subscribe. We will talk more and get to know more of our candidates, more of our leaders, and hear some really hard truths. So if that's a pill that you can swallow, please like and subscribe.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time from George and Diana Unscripted. Talk to you soon.